to do. So when you're breathing and you're doing your exercises, you need to, as you're exhaling, focus on keeping the same as though you were inhaling more air. So your body needs to remain here. And as you exhale, so your natural tendency is to this way. So you need to fight that and try to literally pull back the other way. So don't go backward, but pull back as in, as you're exhaling, as long as possible, I'm keeping my ribs as open as I can, as long as that I can, and then never collapse, even when you let go. Always keep this position in line. Your ribs are nice and lifted. This is spread here. Your shoulders are down and back. Sometimes it helps me to put my hands behind in my pockets, because like my butt pockets actually keeps my shoulders down and back. So you're inhaling, again, you inhale from I always start from the bottom here, and I think to inhale all the way up. I don't inhale from just here or just here. I inhale from the entire length of my torso because it's a fuller inhalation that way. So the exercise would be blow everything out. First, inhaling from the bottom here, letting the ribs naturally spread. And as you're exhaling, you could try using like the consonant S, right? So and I'm not letting this collapse. As long as you can, using a consonant. Sometimes you can just, or whatever. But if that feels like it's too tense on your lips, S is a very common one. Another thing you can do is lay on your back, and I'm not going to do that on camera, but lay on your back, put a book or some other heavy thing on your stomach, and breathe normally, and your stomach will come up and down. Your diaphragm will lift up and down this way. And you'll feel, and the book will come up and come down, right? Inhale, the book will come up on your back, right? You inhale, the book comes up, and exhale and try to keep the book at that same level. So don't let the book come back down. So you're inhaling, and you're exhaling, and you're almost pushing this way as you're exhaling. So don't suck in your gut as you exhale. You do that generally just throughout the day, when you're sitting on the train, when you're sitting in your car, when you are walking down the street. Try to think about keeping the integrity of your torso open as you are exhaling and keeping your shoulders down the back. It's very important not to do this, to keep the shoulders down the back when you inhale and when you exhale. Let this be spread and open and free. And your head, your neck, is not here, but that it's here. That's kind of the good alignment. That's that Alexander thing I was talking about a lot on the video. So that's the good alignment that you want to maintain all the time. This is long. This is free. Your shoulders are down. And then your abs and your torso is doing the work when you're singing and when you're breathing and when you're not singing, and all the time. Okay? So that is a couple breathing exercises for you as far as trying not to collapse. I mean, it takes getting used to it. Some people try holding their breath as an exercise. So they inhale, hold for 4 or 5 counts, and then exhale. So like inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. And then do it on 5 or 8 or 10 or however much, and build up that way. And I think that's a lovely exercise, but I don't want to encourage you to hold, because it's not about holding your breath. You're not a swimmer, you don't need to hold your breath. What you need to learn to do is control the exhalation. So I would encourage you instead to inhale for 4 or 5 counts, exhale for 4 or 5 counts, inhale for 8 counts, exhale for 8 counts, that type of thing, so that you practice controlled exhalation, keeping this engaged.
I would like to go one step farther and clear out this confusion about what is support. It's very simple. Very simple. Support for a singer is the healthy antagonism of balancing the feeling of inhaling with the action of exhaling. I've even said it too complicated. It's real simple. When you sing, think about inhaling, because you're obviously going to be exhaling. And you'll keep this feeling here, right? Is that when you take a breath that is only about what you're going to sing, right? But I only take a breath for the meaning of the phrase, just like we do when we speak, right? So don't gulp. The problem is when we take a breath that goes like this, we shove the larynx down, and it's no longer ready to be like this.
question is, which muscles are you going to use? I would advise you to feel your ribs, feel the sides of your ribs. In the Italian school of singing, there is this thing called the appoggio, which is a very interesting term because appoggiare can mean I'm placing this on something. I'm just putting it there on top of something. I'm placing something on top of something. But it also implies a flux. It also implies that I'm just going to put it there for a second. Or if I'm going to sit down on something, mi appoggio qua. So you're only just perching yourself there. You're not sitting. So the idea of appoggio is to kind of perch yourself upon the intake of the breath. And so what we want to feel is that we're almost always on the intake of the breath, and that you're keeping those muscles out that you feel on the intake, and just letting the air go from a different spot and not controlling it with muscles so much as letting it go in a controlled way, which is, of course, much more subtle and not as easy as just grunting your way through something. But that's why we call it vocal technique, and why it takes a long time to learn, and why it's frustrating at the beginning, because you want to pull in your ribs immediately and your solar plexus goes, oh, I want to be involved. So let's get them uninvolved. First, let's do a little bit of an exercise. I also like to talk about anchoring things in your pelvic floor and feeling that that is where you're breathing from. In some yoga teachings, they talk about a second diaphragm, which is basically your pelvic floor, and that you're breathing from there, and that you can close there. And I find that a very, very helpful concept to talk about in breathing for us as singers. Not that we have to close up anything, but that you feel a certain type of tension that is a good tension. We always have to have a good balance between tension and we don't want this and we don't want, so we want something in between at all points, and it's always a balancing trick. So, or not a trick, it's actually technique. So let's talk about a couple of breathing exercises. One which would be to feel that spot that I talk about in my article, that perineum spot, that pelvic floor spot, that you can actually feel yourself engage with without engaging everything above it, without engaging these muscles here. So if you can breathe in to whatever count you want to do, I think 5 is probably easy. This is to feel the rib cage expand in the sides, especially in the back and in the front, that you want to feel that this is coming out. Not that your stomach's coming out, but that your rib cage is expanding, and be aware of those muscles, those external abdominal oblique muscles. And those are the muscles that we want to engage to keep your ribs open, so that you're not closing down the minute that you start to sing. Your ribs will eventually close down, that I know that, but we want it to resist as far as it can and as long as it can, so that you're not just using all of this with which to sing. So let's talk about the exercise. The exercise is breathing in, feel your ribs. I think this is probably a better stance than this, because then you can get tension here. Feel your ribs come out. I want you to breathe in slowly to a count of 5, and then hold your breath for 5, and then release your breath for 5 counts. And those counts can be as slow or as fast as you want, or you can make it 10, or you can make it 3 if you don't, or whatever. But just that you can comfortably do all of these stages of the exercise. And when I say hold in the middle, I don't want you to hold. I want you to feel like you are still inhaling. And it's going to feel a little bit of a struggle, that you really want to, but I want you to be aware of those muscles, so that you become consciously aware of those muscles, and you can call upon those muscles.
For me, the biggest issue with breath support is not what we're doing with our breath, but it's everything that we're doing to interfere with the breath. We can interfere with it on the way in. We can overbreathe. If you overbreathe, in order to stop all that breath, you have to cut everything off to sort of contain it, okay? If you take in a nice little breath that is going to be circular and just sort of keep going, that doesn't cause you to block anything off, when you are ready to phonate, you don't have to push through any blockage, okay? You think about the breath, it intakes, it drops totally freely, it goes right down, boom, and then you're ready to go. Just as when you're speaking. You're not thinking about breathing when you're speaking, and you can go on and on. Listen to some teenage girl, they can go on and on forever, and they're not thinking about breath. So make sure that when you're taking in your air, you're not over-breathing, and you're not forcing the air in, and you're not forcing it to go anywhere. Allow it to go all the way in. If you can allow it to go 360 degrees, all the way to your back ribs, the low ribs, sort of your back tailbone, and your side ribs, and all your side, and if it sort of becomes like an inner tube around you, that's brilliant. Don't force that, but if you can really let it drop, it becomes like a tire around you. Again, I don't think about forcing that, but I just make sure the conditions are right, that when I open up and the air comes in, it's going all the way down completely free. If it enters freely and without force, the odds are much stronger that it's going to come out freely. Okay? Now, this idea of breath support to the sound. I don't really use that word. I understand why it's used. Support to me infers this kind of thing. But
the way I was taught to breathe, which has been very helpful to me, is a very low, deep breath. But you also have to be very relaxed. And, you know, Mr. Fromeyer always talks about making sure you expand in all areas, including like your lower back. And basically so that when you're breathing, you're breathing down low so that you're not putting any pressure in your throat. Because you don't want to ever feel anything here. You want to do your very best. You know, he also talks about placing pressure in other areas, like he'll tell me to grip my big toe. You know, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's surprising how that helps, because then you don't think about the high E you're about to sing. So, I mean, I don't think breathing is rocket science. I think it's just a deep, full, low breath. And it requires coordination, though. That's the thing, because the other thing is it depends on how, if you're about to sing a phrase, it depends on if you're gonna let some of that air go and then start to sing it, or if you're gonna sing it immediately when you take the breath. All of that comes into play, but it depends on how long the phrase is. All of these technical things that you think about. It's amazing.
Any position, and still have the breath support in order to do that. So she would have me lie on my back, totally lie on my back on the floor, with my kind of feeling my ribs, the back of my rib cage, and sort of the lower backside of the diaphragm onto the floor. And she would have me inhale and kind of push myself with my muscles and with breathing in, that sort of inhale of breath, pushing myself against the floor, right, so that my body would sort of come up, and then doing a very long, as long as I could, sustained exhale of until you're out. And I would do that for a good minute, I'd say. And we did this before I would start like doing vocal exercises. And I did this for years, and I still do this today. What does it build? It builds an inner, so we have a lot of muscles in our bodies, right? And the muscles that are nearest to the bones, these little tiny muscles, Those are probably the most important for a singer. The big ones, of course, are very important as well, but the small muscles in our bodies can really help support how we want to produce sound and sort of have the stamina in order to produce a certain kind of sound for a while. So to build those muscles from the inside out, from deep within, is really helpful. And that's kind of the way I did that at such a young age.
So you feel like when you sing a lot, you feel it more in the back?
I do, but not everybody.
Oh.
I had this school, my teacher teach me what you have to support a lot on your back.
But you are singing like in this position, in any position, lying down. So, but it's always like the support?
Yeah, it's a practice. You really need a practice.
Now stand up again. Well, I already have my straw. And let's do it again. So let's do a nice big breath. Okay, so first of all, really relax your shoulders. You're tending to kind of use your arms and so much squeezing out those pitches, right? So we don't want that at all. We want it to have a fabulous support system that allows us to sing on a cushion of air with ease, no pressure. Okay, so inhale. Wow, I just feel my rib cage go whoosh. One more time. Feel that? Keep going. Okay, now without the straw. Yes, with this relaxed, right? Okay, so that's where you want to be. Now, also expand here. Yeah, oh my God, that's a thing of beauty. That was fantastic. And your back, all the way around, nice barrel. Right? Now, if you watch on YouTube and go back and watch all the old timers, 50s, 60s, you know, any great singer who had longevity, none of them sing with a collapsed chest. So you really want to make sure that you do the low breath and you also expand your rib cage. And then this just, I feel like when I'm singing well, my chin is practically resting on my chest. Larynx, everything is totally relaxed. Now just to open up. Good, more, a little more. Good, exhale. See, I'm not seeing anything expand here. You have the perfect dress on, by the way, because now I can see the white, you know. I'm not seeing this expansion and then this exhale. So watch me. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I mean? Everybody try this.